Good morning, good morning. Happy Tuesday, May the 20th, in the day of our Lord, Donald Trump. And he, of course, is delivering on all the plentiful goodness that he promised on the campaign trail. We'll be talking about, of course, the Trump and Vladimir Putin phone call here in the show. You are tuned in to the Ted Manila Information Show. TMI for short. I am Manila Chan. That over there is Ted Rall, the Ted, because the show is called the Ted Manila Information Show. So Ted has now got the as a title. If you guys are looking for
I don't. It's the only.
Oh, we lost you.
No,
we lost your audio. There you are.
No, I'm here.
There you are. Yeah,
I'm switching to increased clarity.
The Ted there. If you guys are new to the show, welcome, and warning, we say bad words on this show, and we talk about the thoughts that you probably want to voice and you just don't. Ted and I we talk about those things, and we do that Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So please be sure to like and follow the show wherever you're consuming this content. We are still, young-ish in our tenure, so we need your help. If you tell the algorithms that you're here, you click that like button. Maybe if you're able to, on Rumble, join us on the Rumble Premium platform so you can get us commercial free, get all this extra bonus content, and you get all the other great Rumble creators for free with not for free, but with no commercials. And so that's kind of a perk. So we're part of that program. So you can join us there. If you're watching on Rumble right now, hit that red button that is right below this talking head box that says Rumble Premium, bright red. You can join us right there. And of course, a portion of your membership will come to the show. It'll directly help the show. So with that, a lot of stuff to get to before a friend of the show, Scott Stantis, joins us to talk more about this Biden cancer diagnosis. And one leading doctor, Ted, that I think is safe to say leans very left and has direct ties. His family has direct ties to the Obama era. Said some pretty startling things that Joe Scarborough was like, his hair was blown back.
Well, I always quote my old lawyer. Not only is it not true that Joe Biden just found out he had cancer, it cannot be true.
Yeah.
So
we'll show
that's
you
a paraphrase.
That soundbite of a very famous oncologist that knows the Biden family very well.
I've talked to several doctors about this too, and they all confirm the same thing. Yeah,
for sure.
We'll get into it with Scott.
We'll talk about that a little later in the show, of course. So with that, a lot of news to get to. So let's hop to it. Wait for the jaws.
Here we go. Russian President Vladimir Putin, you may have heard of him, he spoke on the phone with Donald Trump. The conversation yesterday focused on the conflict in Ukraine and a possible ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. The phone call, initially announced by Trump on Saturday, finally took place. Trump said that the talk would be about stopping the bloodbath between Russia and Ukraine, as well as bilateral trade. Russia says that the conversation was important to them, with Foreign Minister Dmitry Peskov saying that the call was based.
Dmitry Peskov is the spokesman.
Sorry, Kremlin spokesperson. Sorry, stating that the call would be based on the results of the recent meeting in Turkey between Russia and Ukraine. And by the way, it was startling, Manila, to see for the first time in years a photo of a meeting where there were both Russians and Ukrainians in the room, with flags of their two countries side by side with Turkey's in between. It was kind of startling. Russia says that it's very psyched about the mediation role that Trump offered to play, and sees the diplomatic path as preferable. In other words, they would rather resolve this with words rather than bullets. We highly value the United States' mediating efforts if they truly help us achieve our objectives by peaceful means, he said. Steve Witkoff, special envoy for Trump and a key figure behind this whole process, has expressed hope that the call would be very successful and would be able to clear some of the logjam in the negotiations. Well, that call took place, and Manila, you have some stuff to show, I believe. You have a little audiovisual presentation.
I got some truths to drop from
let's see them.
Our Lord Donald Trump. He truthed this out immediately after the phone call. I presume.
Should I read it for the people who are listening on audio? I think I said just completed my 2-hour call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. I believe it went very well. Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations towards a ceasefire and, more importantly, an end to the war. The conditions for that will be negotiated between the two parties, as it only can only be, because they know details of a negotiation that nobody else would be aware of. That's really bizarre. The tone and spirit of the conversation were excellent. If it wasn't, I would say so now rather than later. Also bizarre. Russia wants to do large-scale trade with the United States when this catastrophic bloodbath is over, and I agree. There's a tremendous opportunity for Russia to create massive amounts of jobs and wealth. Its potential is unlimited. Well, that's true. Likewise, Ukraine can be a great beneficiary on trade in the process of rebuilding its country. Also true. Negotiations between Russia and Ukraine will begin immediately. I have informed President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, Emmanuel Macron of France, Giorgia Meloni of Italy, Friedrich Merz of Germany, Alexander Stubb of Finland, and Clovis during a call with me immediately after the call with Putin. The Vatican, as represented by the Pope, has stated that it would be as represented by the Pope. You may have heard of him. Leo the 14th, has stated that it would be he'd be very interested in hosting the negotiations. Let the process begin. So the thing is, as with so many things Trumpian, look, I like the spirit of it, obviously, but it's always about the how, right? It's like, so the
grammatically, Ted, grammatically, do you think there's anything with the way he capitalized certain words like trade, unlimited? Those are all caps. Then he
no, just like there's the scare quotes that he has in there too.
He always just like when he tweeted like Kofi Fee. Like
old people write like that. You know what I mean? Like very bombastically, like lots of all caps.
In the process of rebuilding its country, capital C, I guess.
Right.
Or trade, capital trade.
No. If I were writing it and it was all caps, it would mean something. When Donald Trump writes it all caps, doesn't mean anything. It's just, he's just writing.
Maybe I'm trying to read. Yeah, maybe I'm trying to read too much into it. But I think it's important. I'm going to highlight this right here, is that he said, I have so informed President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, and then von der Leyen and all of them. He says, I have informed them. That is basically saying, bitch, I told you what's going to happen.
Right. That's true. And that's obviously what's going on. So I guess basically the part that's interesting is he wants Russia and Ukraine to, I guess, have direct negotiations. There's no word here of whether or not there would be an intermediary or a mediator, and if so, who that mediator would be, either in terms of what country it would be. Yeah, maybe the Pope.
So weird.
The Pope would be well, I mean, look, I don't think the Pope would be the right guy. He's just got the job. He's just, figuring things out. He's trying on his new mitre. I mean, I don't know. It's just like that. He's
getting his cone hat,
We had talked about offline, you and I, and producer Robbie, about how, shouldn't like the Eastern Orthodox prelate be involved. But I actually don't think they could, because now the war has politicized the Orthodox Church, right? And there's been the divisions between the Ukrainian Orthodox and the Russian Orthodox churches. So maybe just because you need someone to come in.
The whole issue of Zelensky ransacking some of these old churches in Ukraine, literally like nabbing
banning the Russian Orthodox Church completely,
arresting people in the churches. Maybe not such a great idea to go into the whole.
So the two sides aren't going to agree to one of those guys. But
here's the kicker.
We need a mediator. I would say, Witkoff would probably be a good choice for the mediator.
Probably the best.
Because Witkoff is smart. He knows the situation. And, I don't know. It just seems like I'm getting the sense here that Trump's feeling a little overwhelmed because he's got a lot on his plate dealing with Israel and this at the same time and other stuff. I think he's trying to outsource this a little bit. Like, hey, can you guys, like, you with Russia and Ukraine, can you like work out some of the details?
You guys just do that?
Yeah, and that's not going to.
I'll make my phone call.
Okay, so newsflash, President Trump, that's not going to work. These, you need a negotiator who's a mediator who's basically going to tell them both, here's what's what. Witkoff understands Russia's concerns, is sympathetic to most of them, and is also in a place to be able to tell the Ukrainians what they're going to have to accept. I think
Trump obviously highlighted the importance to him, what's important to him, these transactional business deals, right? Like that is of utmost importance to Donald Trump. And then
that's fine. That's fine for Putin. I mean,
Yeah, whatever. Like, whatever. Let's just have a détente. Let's do some deals. So RT posted this on their Twitter. They said, rare, wholesome details from Putin-Trump call. One, they addressed each other as Donald and Vladimir. Mm-hmm. Neither of them wanted to hang up first. Like,
I wonder if Vladimir was explaining the 16th century history of the development of the Russian empire.
I view that as like, no, you hang up. No, you hang up first. No, you hang up first. No, you hang up first. I don't want to hang up. You hang up. And then Trump told him, Vladimir, you could pick up the phone at any time. I will be happy to talk to you. So that's RT's take on it. That's a good thing. But then this other podcast group called Russians with Attitude, they said, I can't verify because I haven't verified. I guess I can, but I haven't done it. Zelensky's statements after the Putin-Trump call, apparently in Ukrainian media, Zelensky already says Kiev will not accept any sort of ultimatum by Russia. Ukraine will not withdraw its troops from anywhere or give up any territory. Ukrainian NATO aspirations are not up for debate. There will be no neutrality. And he expects he expects new European sanctions against Russia soon. He asked Trump not to make any decisions about Ukraine without Ukraine. So I think that's right there. If these prove out to be true, what this shows me is Zelensky's totally showing his ass, right? Like he's showing he's the one that doesn't want to end the grift. He wants the war to continue because he needs another villa in Lake
Can you put
Como.
those back up? I want to take them one at a time because I have interpretations here. Now with Zelensky, you always have to read between the lines. Not so much with Putin; he's a straightforward guy. So Kiev will not accept any sort of ultimatum by Russia. That's for domestic consumption. It's like, and it's a meaningless term, right? Like, who's to define what is an ultimatum? If Russia says, "Oh, we would like this and that," I mean, that's a request. It's not an ultimatum. It's like even if Russia says, "Agree to it," and we're walking away, I guess you could say that's an ultimatum. But it's a request, right? I mean, it's a negotiation. That first line is like you can just ignore it. It doesn't mean anything. Ukraine will not withdraw its troops from anywhere or give up any territory. I'll start with the territory. So first of all, that means additional territory. They don't want to acknowledge the territory that's been lost, like Crimea and the Donbass. Well, they don't have to, probably. They're going to have to tacitly accept it, which is not the same thing as a formal writing a document that says we agree to it. They don't have to agree to it. But it's gone. Okay. And so in terms of withdrawing its troops from anywhere, that's going to have to be negotiated, but obviously they will negotiate that away because they're going to have to withdraw their troops from some areas because there's going to have to be a land swap because Russia currently has some territory that it doesn't really want and that Ukraine wants and vice versa. So there's going to be some land swapping going on so that ethnic Russians end up in areas that are controlled by Russia and vice versa. The NATO aspirations thing, okay, he's been smoking some serious cannabis because maybe there will be no neutrality, but Ukraine can't join NATO. And the sanctions against Europe from the Europeans, whoop-de-doo, who cares?
Whatever.
And anyway, it's, he asks Trump not to. So I don't think, I've been saying all along that I'm fairly optimistic about all this. I remain somewhat optimistic about all this. I mean, we're not there yet, but, it's moving forward.
I still say he is a crazy, maniacal egomaniac, and he is smoking too much crack. Maybe he's hanging out with Hunter Biden. I don't know. But I don't know where he gets the notion that he thinks he's going to have more of a say. The fact that the Russians are even considering calling it quits of a war is generous enough, because really they can just drudge this on
Sure,
and
but
on and
it
on.
costs money and lives to Russia too, right? They'd like
Sure.
to,
But they can. The point is the Russians have all the cards. They're dominating on the battlefield. If they wanted to drag this out, they can. They have the bodies for it. They have the money, the production capability, the people. They have everything on their side. They can drag this out if the terms of their demands are not met. So I think Zelensky is, if these demands from Zelensky are true, like, he's a crackhead. You're a crackhead. Trump is sick of this
a
thing.
head of crackery.
He's over it. He seriously, like this. There's that picture you're talking about with, the Russian and Ukrainian flags in the same room.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's Lindsey Graham. I knew he was there, but he was in the talks. Come on, this dude is a hawk. That's like super pro rah
Aren't
Ukraine.
there some good LGBT clubs in Istanbul? That I'm surprised he was able to make it.
They're low pro, Ted. They're low pro. I guess he's kind of cut off, but he's kind of on the American side. What the hell is Lindsey Graham doing there in Istanbul? Like, why is he there talking for anybody?
I view it as a blessing that he's not in the United States.
Well, sure, but he's only going to be there to be he was there as a wrench, a monkey wrench in the spokes. That guy is not looking for peace. I would not. Why would Trump allow him to go?
No, whatever. Trump doesn't care. All right, we should move on. I think we're gonna have Scott join us down at the bottom of the hour. All right. So for a couple of years, cops in New Orleans secretly relied on facial recognition technology to scan the streets of the city in search of suspects, a surveillance method without known precedent in any American city that might violate municipal guardrails against the use of that tech. That, according to the Washington Post. Cops increasingly use facial recognition to identify unknown culprits from still images, usually taken by surveillance cameras at or near the scene of a crime. New Orleans cops went further. They used a private network of over 200 facial recognition cameras to scan the streets, constantly monitoring for wanted suspects and automatically pinging officers' mobile phones through the app to convey the names and current locations of possible matches. I'd just like to point out, it's not completely unprecedented. For example, here in New York City, if you drive over one of the major bridges or tunnels, for example, the RFK Bridge, also formerly the Triborough Bridge, connecting Queens, Manhattan, and the Bronx, it's a major artery. There's scanners that use facial recognition software. And if they get a ping like, oh, this person like Manila is wanted on a bench warrant, there's a cop waiting at the end of the bridge to arrest you. So it's not like it's never been done before, but it's disturbing. It's very Orwellian. Anyway, this seems to run afoul of a city council ordinance passed 3 years ago, which limits the cops to using facial recognition only when they're looking for a specific suspect and only when they're investigating a violent crime, never as a generalized surveillance tool to track people in public places. So according to the ordinance, if the cops want to scan for one particular person's face, they're supposed to send the still image of that face to examiners at a state facility and later provide details about the scans in their reports to city council in order to keep things from getting a little out of control in 1984. Like, since early 2023, the facial recognition cameras have played a role in dozens of arrests, including at least 4 who were only charged with nonviolent offenses. So the cops did not disclose their reliance on facial recognition matches in police reports for most of the arrests, for which the police provided detailed records. So it was all kept on the hush-hush, and none of the cases were included in the mandatory reports to city council. So that's pretty bad. This is the facial recognition technology nightmare scenario that we've been worried about, says a deputy director with the ACLU. This is the government giving itself the power to track anyone, for that matter, everyone, as we go about our lives, walking around in public. Police around the country rely on facial recognition, which is used as AI to map the physical features of a face in one image and compare it to the faces of databases of images like mugshots, driver's licenses, photos on social media, looking for possible matches. New Orleans' use of automated facial recognition had not previously been known, and it's the first widespread effort by cops in a major U.S. city to use AI to identify people in live feeds. Some police agencies use this stuff in violation of local laws. Sorry, discarding traditional investigative standards and putting innocent people at risk. Sometimes suspects have been arrested without any independent evidence whatsoever connecting them to the crime. So chances of a false arrest are pretty significant. Often, the cops fail to tell the defendants that they used facial recognition software, denying them any opportunity to go to court to contest the results, even though we know that that tech is not very reliable for people of color, women, and older people. So it's pretty serious. Not surprising to me that New Orleans, of all places, would be breaking the law. I mean, they're famously corrupt city. This was a city where when I had a fender bender and I exchanged information with the person who I hit and left, the cop came later and was furious because he wanted to arrest me. My lawyer, who I hired in New Orleans, said, "Oh, you did the right thing by leaving. You could have been killed." I'm like, "What do you mean?"
What?
It's like, "Oh," he said, "it's standard in New Orleans for people to be taken into custody and shaken down for money, and if they don't pay up thousands of dollars to the cops, that they can be killed." And I was like, "You're an officer of the court. You're telling me that?" And it's like, "Uh-huh." So New Orleans is a it's a fourth world country down there, but they just do whatever the hell they want.
You were just there.
Yeah, that's true.
You were just there recently.
Yeah, well, about 6 months ago.
So for me, was it 6 months already? Well, for me, I'm increasingly skeptical of like social media and all of this, the AI usage, and that's why I've become more and more analog. The more technology advances, the more it pisses me off that, look, I get that when you're out in public, you still are afforded a reasonable, what's considered, but how do you define reasonable, right? A reasonable level of privacy. Like, you can't go upskirting me when I'm walking down the street.
No,
right?
but I can take your photo.
But you can take my photo, yes. But like when it's law enforcement doing this, I mean, do we lose any and all privacy by virtue of being on the public street? And especially because there's different laws that apply to the popo, when the fact is you can't, it's like stop and frisk. You can't just like stop people for no reason just in hopes of finding that they have weed on them. This is like the digital version of stop and frisk. And this is especially not cool for darker skinned people. I mean, we've shown over and over in I don't know how many reports that the technology it can't sort out the facial features of darker skinned people. Mm-hmm. It's harder for it to read.
Well, it's not programmed. It's generally not programmed by white people who don't really know. They're not. It's the programming. They're not doing a good job with the programming.
But what's worse is I don't want my face being collected into a database just because I'm going to the grocery store. Like these people, right? Like I don't want Big Brother knowing everything I'm doing at all times.
And neither does New Orleans City Council, which is why they passed this resolution, this ordinance, not specifically prohibiting this. And I think that's kind of the main point here, is that the police did whatever they wanted and they ignored City Council.
And there's some shit to be paid there. I think that's something has.
Well, all the data should be destroyed. Gotta say.
And I honestly don't believe that it does. And I'm a big privacy person, so there's that.
So
I'm just pissed off about that.
I'm violently opposed to this. I mean, I get into a lot of detail in my book about Edward Snowden, about all the different kinds of surveillance that you might not be aware of. License plate scanners all over the country that are tracking everybody, every car that goes by. It all gets stored into
your Easy Pass.
Yeah.
I try to avoid going into the tolls for that reason, just because.
Yeah.
I just don't want
By the
them
way,
to
there's
know
the
where
Easy
I'm
Pass can
traveling.
get you a speeding ticket too. They can, like, if they see that you went across the bridge too fast, bam, you get an automated ticket.
Part.
Yeah.
I
So
wonder about that.
But I mean, basically, privacy is dead unless you live in a very, very rural area. There's like basically.
Robbie's smiling, but he's wrong. There's enough city life where he is that there's also.
Yeah, but it's not like
privacy.
it's not like it is like here in New York City where there's tens of millions of cameras. All right, so let's keep going here. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is going to meet Trump tomorrow. Of course, tensions between the RSA and the USA are pretty high these days. And those two guys have, kind of like talked shit about each other over the years. So we'll see what happens there. Trump last year granted refugee status to 49 Afrikaners who were supposedly fleeing white genocide.
They're here now.
Talk about dog whistle, despite Ramaphosa's insistence that there is no such thing, which is kind of not true either. Other points of contention, it's not really genocide, but white farmers have been attacked and even killed. That's true. Other points of contention include South Africa's case against Israel at the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. Trump froze foreign aid, which has affected South Africa's ability to fight HIV and the country's ties to Russia and China. The media in South Africa is wondering how things are going to go because what if Ramaphosa walks into what they called a Zelensky-style ambush? But Ramaphosa's spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, says that the government isn't worried about any potential hostile reception. Before Trump decided to grant those Afrikaners asylum, he called for an investigation to take place into South Africa for confiscating land in February. He was referring to the expropriation bill in the RSA, which replaced the apartheid era of the bill, version of the bill, setting out the legal procedures for South Africa to own private land for public purposes with nil compensation in some circumstances. Here we would, what do we call that? Eminent domain. During this time, a video of Ramaphosa launching a pointed attack against Trump resurfaced from when the pair had first clashed about this. This was back in 2018. I don't think Donald Trump's holding any grudge like that. I don't think it matters. I mean, I think, honestly, I think that they're like anticipating drama that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I think this is much ado about nothing. The dude, Ramaphosa, landed at Joint Base Andrews yesterday, so he's probably collecting himself, getting ready for this. From my understanding, he's in town really for money. He's here trying to make deals with Donald Trump. I don't think he actually cares about the so-called drama with the Afrikaners. I don't think he cares about any previous mean tweets or whatever. I don't think that's the thing.
If I were him, I'd be psyched to be rid of those Afrikaners.
Trump is the one making the spectacle of it. I don't think Ramaphosa gives two shits about that. Like, fine, you want to bring 50 people over, whatever, okay.
Whoop-de-doo.
And then there's the most famous South African, the most famous
true.
African in the world, world's richest man, Elon Musk. I'd be curious to see if he's gonna meet with him also, because his Elon Musk's family, I think, is old Dutch Afrikaners.
Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm.
I think his dad was like in the diamond trade or something.
Oh no, that's some very dirty money that helped launch Elon Musk. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
All
right. Yeah. One more. We got Scott in the background.
All right, Scott, hold tight. On March 28th, a powerful earthquake magnitude between 7.7 and 7.9, that's a monster, struck near Mandalay, Myanmar, causing a lot of damage and killing over 5,300 people. This was the biggest earthquake there since 1912, and it also affected Thailand and Vietnam, causing a state of emergency throughout Southeast Asia. Now, the president of one of Thailand's biggest construction companies has surrendered to the police investigating the collapse of a high-rise building under construction in Bangkok. The disaster killed 92 Thais, The building was the only building in the city to collapse, and the authorities are looking into claims that the way it was designed and built made it disintegrate. The criminal court approved arrest warrants for 17 people, including Premchai Karnasuta, 71 years old, president of the Italian Thai Development Company, which was building the tower in a joint venture with China Railway Number 10. That according to the Bangkok Post. Gotta love those Chinese companies with their catchy names. Others arrested included builders, designers, engineers. They now face charges of possible negligence causing death. Deputy Chief of Bangkok Police, Nopasin Punsawat, said the individuals who surrendered to the cops denied the claims. Several have already issued public denials in the media as well. The joint venture between the Chinese and the Thais was building a 32-story high office tower for the State Audit Office of Thailand. I assume that's the equivalent of like the IRS. Nopasin said the news conference that testimony that from experts suggested the building plan did not meet the building codes in Thailand. In particular, there were concerns that the project had structural flaws in the core lift shaft and used substandard concrete and steel. Well, all I can say is I don't know what the Thais are going to do about this.
Are you seeing this, Ted? Look,
oh yeah. If you're found guilty,
look at this.
Oh, goodbye.
Look at this. It looks like 9/11 all over again.
If you were
collapsed into
that shit, but if that happened in China, and you're found guilty of something like that,
oh well,
they're going to shoot you on national television and charge your family for the price of the bullet. So just be happy it wasn't in China. But I don't think the Thais will do that.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the Thai people, you go to prison forever.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a luxurious Thai prison. Beautiful. No scorpions or cobras at all.
Oh my God. I can't believe the footage coming out of there. And you think of Thailand as like this newer cosmopolitan city. I mean, look at this footage. They have these high-rise towers, and so many American and Western tourists go there, right? Like they go holiday there, they go to the rooftop pools, they go to Phuket, they go to, it's so you think of it as this like fairly safe building wise cosmopolitan
I
city.
would not think that. Manila, have you been to Bangkok?
I have not, but
Okay.
I know a lot of people that have been, and they
and I'm one of them.
They think that the buildings are like, oh, look at these tall buildings. I'm going to be staying on the 74th floor,
I don't know.
Like,
you're in a fucking. I mean, you're in a serious seismic zone, and I mean, Thailand's a third world country. I mean, it's a developing country, right?
Right,
I mean,
masquerading as this cool vacation spot.
Well, it's a great vacation spot, and I look forward to going again. But it's definitely like, it's like
I wouldn't stay in that.
Is it more reliable than say Cambodia? Sure, but it's Thailand's in the developing. It's a developing country. I wouldn't have any faith whatsoever in their building codes.
Right. I don't either. I don't believe my parents always told me that because I would, say, how come Laos hasn't developed the way Thailand has?
Well, Laos is much poorer than Thailand.
Right. And they would tell me, don't be fooled by those buildings,
yeah. No, it's like Bangladesh, those buildings collapse all the time.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
And it's so tragic that
although in fairness to the Bangladeshis, they have like a really high groundwater problem. So it's hard to get the foundational support for those buildings.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway.
So let's leave that there, but that's an interesting.
Speaking of collapse.
Yeah, let's jaws it and bring in friend of the show.
Hey.
Ted's bestie.
Welcome, Scott.
Hey, guys.
Editorial cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune. I'm doing this all by heart. Contributor to Center Clip. What am I forgetting? Winner of the Sigma Delta Chi Journalism Award. And co-host of the DMC America podcast with yours truly, Ted Rall. All by heart. Not too bad, right?
Yeah, very
Joe
good.
Biden couldn't do that.
Can I jump in real quick on the conversation about buildings?
Yeah,
I was in Dubai a few years back, and Dubai, just as Manila was describing other places, if you see the buildings from a distance, it looks awesome. I mean, it's amazing. Buildings everywhere.
Very tall. Very tall.
Very well, the tallest in the world, the Taj Khalifa. But when you get close to them, it's all done by the only way to put this is slave labor. These guys come from
No, you're right.
Muslim from India.
Bangladesh. Yep.
Yes, and they are crammed into little quarters. They take their passports away, and so it's indentured servitude. So you get that kind of person is building these technically amazing tall structures that, you say the Thai, I love the Thai government saying these buildings may not have been built to code. Well, you know how we know that?
Code.
They fell down.
What's your code exactly? That's what I'd like to know. Like, what exactly does your code look like?
But honestly, okay, I'm gonna defend the Thais a little bit here. I mean, if you had an earthquake of 7.9 in Los Angeles,
I mean,
would only one building fall down?
No, I mean that's fair. That is a fucking massive.
It's a monster.
That is.
I mean, think about the damage of the damage from that big earthquake in the late 1980s, right? Was it Loma Prieta, 1989? The one in Oakland, right? The San Francisco Bay Area one.
Right, that collapsed the bridge.
That bridge was and also a major section of elevated freeway as well.
That was the bridge.
And I think some buildings too. So plus the bridge. Yeah, I mean, we and a lot of people died. So I mean, and that was only a 6.9. I mean, what people don't understand about earthquakes is an earthquake that is an 8 on the Richter scale is twice as powerful as one that's a 7. It's exponential. One that's a 7 is twice as powerful as a 6.
Scott and I are both California babies. We've lived through earthquakes. Yeah. I don't think I've experienced anything beyond a 6 something.
Yeah,
and you'll notice a 6. You'll feel a 6.
Oh yeah.
You'll feel a 5.
Yeah.
I was visiting family in San Pedro, which is the South Bay of Los Angeles, during the Big Bear earthquake. And it was back-to-back big earthquakes, which I forget which comedian it was. I need to give credit. This is not an original thought, but he said, they always say after an earthquake, there are aftershocks. And like the original earthquake was 6.5, and then the aftershock was 6.0. Because that's not an aftershock. That's another earthquake.
That's just that's not, no. Hilarious. Like, I don't know how people, I don't know. But anyway.
Aftershock. Anyway, so I was there and I think a Big Bear was 6.4. And, you saw that video from Thailand and the water sloshing off the top of that building, the pool. My parents and my in-laws had a house with a pool. And Janine would describe that they had an earthquake and they heard this sloshing, and it was the pool water splashing against the house. I went, oh.
In ground.
Yes. And so we're in this house, and all of a sudden you hear this kaboosh, gaboosh.
Oh, weird.
And it was the pool water splashing against the house. And this was Big Bear, which is probably, Manila, what would you say? 2-3 hour drive from the
San
south.
Pedro? Like, if you're moderate to light traffic, 2 hours.
Yeah. So that's how strong earthquakes can be. And so 6.5. Yeah. I'm trying to go down the hallway,
so Bangkok was a 7.9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
That's a monster.
Basically an 8. I mean, I'm actually surprised that more of the city didn't crumble. So maybe we on the flip side, we should give them more credit.
I think they did pretty well, frankly.
Yeah, maybe we should give them more credit, actually, is that only one building went down and that dozens didn't go down.
By the way, the fact that it was under construction also tells me, as a former civil engineering major, that maybe there may have been redundant support systems that weren't completed at the point.
I'm smiling because is there a major you didn't have, Ted?
Yes, many.
Ted was indecisive.
But yes, I was not. Well, that's true.
Non-committal.
Curious.
I only had 3. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I had 2.
I started out as nuclear engineering and applied physics. Then I moved to civil engineering. Then history.
And all to become a cartoonist.
That's right.
Ties together.
It doesn't really matter what you major in at all.
I only had
most people do not end up working in their field of study if they go to college.
I only had the 1 and the minor in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of psychology.
Speaking of psychology, right? So obviously, yesterday on the show, Manila and I talked obviously about the Joe Biden cancer bullshit. I mean, diagnosis, and basically how it ties in. And now, we've had a chance to see some of the mainstream punditry and alternative punditry that's followed. So basically, we now know from the Jake Tapper book, which comes out today.
Bullshit.
Bullshit alert.
But we fully have on the record what Scott and I and other people were talking about for many years, which was that Joe Biden has been senile probably since at least 2019, and by some accounts all the way back to Bo's death in 2015. I've always theorized, Manila, you'll remember this. I always said I thought that his brain blew up after Bo died.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think that's probably right. I think it would probably happen to a lot of people, me included, if you suffered something like that. I don't blame him that way. But what I do blame is that the Democratic Party appears to have knowingly run someone that they knew is mentally incompetent for president of the United States, then covered for him for 4 years and basically pretended like this wasn't the case. Well, it started badly and it got worse steadily throughout, and then tried to run him for re-election and expands the grift for an additional 4 years, while also appointing a vice president who they didn't trust to be able to do the job, even though they knew she would likely have to do it. And now, adding to all that, we have this cancer reveal, which is that, he has stage 4 metastatic cancer, the slowest moving cancer of them all, prostate cancer. And
which is why it's significant.
It's impossible what they're saying, that basically he just discovered it, no PSA tests. He's just, and by the way, the news of this is, we're going to release this 2 days before Jake's book comes out. 2 weeks.
Get ahead of it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, let me put this into perspective. Even if this is all true, which it's not, okay? But let's just say that 2 days ago, over the weekend, Biden found out, and he's like, okay, we got to get the news out there. Well, okay, anyone else would say, it's going to look bad. We got the Tapper book coming out. Everyone's talking about how you were mentally deranged for the last 4 years. It'll look like we're trying to tsunami that news out of the headlines with the cancer thing and gin up sympathy for you. So why don't we sit on it for a couple of weeks, let the Tapper stuff cycle through, then we'll announce. That's what you would do if you had any integrity. But that's the fact. Zeke Emanuel's the release now. It's ridiculous. Go,
Scott. Listen to. Okay, so we know Joe Scarborough. I think sleeping with Mika Brzezinski.
Well, not just sleeping with, married to.
Yes, but sleeping with her is what did it. What got to his brain, and he's blown away. He's got some brain parasite, I think, after sleeping with Mika Brzezinski. So it crept up there. And so he's talking to Dr. Zeke Emanuel yesterday, who is Rahm Emanuel's brother and a world famous oncologist, and worked within the Obama administration, knows the Bidens. So let's take a minute, listen to what he said about, is it possible that they didn't know? And you can tell looking at Joe Scarborough's face is he's like, no, don't tell the truth. Look.
Prostate cancer to develop to a point where it would spread to the bones.
Oh, he's had this for many years, maybe even a decade, growing there and spreading. That's right. It's a little surprising. I look back at the records, and there's no evidence that when he got his health status and the medical records were released that he had a prostate-specific antigen. Now, it is true that a lot of people recommend not doing a prostate-specific antigen after 70, but President Biden's been in public life a very long time. He was vice president and had a lot of exams under 70. So it's a little surprising that they didn't do it. And maybe President Biden decided he didn't want the test. Many men do decide they don't want a PSA. But this is, it is also aggressive. When we talk about aggressive, part of what we mean is that Gleason score. That score is from it's 2 up to 10. And he's at a 9. And that means that the cancer doesn't look normal. It looks very abnormal, which is probably why it's in the bone. And as you point out, Joe, it's been around for a very long time in President Biden years. Exactly how many we don't know, obviously. And it is a little surprising to many of us oncologists that he wasn't diagnosed earlier.
Let me just say, Joe Biden is 78 years old, right? Donald Trump is 78 years old.
No, he, at the time.
No, he's right. He's 82 right now, Joe Biden. Donald Trump is 78 years old. So in 2016, that makes Donald Trump 69. In 2017, he's right, and he's 70 years old. Men over 70 don't get PSA tests. Donald Trump did in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and he publicly released his PSA numbers each and every year.
Oh.
Yeah, just saying.
They were the best numbers. No one's ever had better
Actually,
numbers.
they were good numbers. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, good for him.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I mean, here's where, Manila, I need your help.
I'll try.
Because I am so angry. I called Ted early this morning, just furious because I listened to NPR and they're doing all as much bullshittery as they could possibly spew about who could have known. Nobody could have known this. Probably a guy with the best health care in the world. Who could have known?
But and someone who doesn't want us to get good health care, by the way.
Right.
And now the story's coming out that his day, he'd go up to the residence around 4, sometimes go to dinner at 4:30, which is my mother-in-law, God bless her, who is battling dementia, has dinner at her place at 4:30. There'd be times, according to this report, that the president would just leave the Oval Office, the West Wing, and go up to the residence and then not come back. I'm guessing he just sort of started wandering and they found him 2 or 3 miles away from the White House, but that's just my mind working the way it works. Here's my point, Manila, and this is what pisses me off more than anything. I had friends, colleagues, fellow cartoonists, fellow commentators, people online castigating me, running me across the coals, calling me a tool of Trump. And I know Ted went through the same thing because we had the temerity to say, here's what we see and here's what we hear. And this guy is struggling with dementia. Ted had to deal with this with his mother. I'm dealing it with my mother-in-law. We don't say this with glee or like, look, he's suffering. Right. This is great. We're not saying anything remotely like this. But we were saying he shouldn't be president. He shouldn't have been president in the second half of his term, quite frankly.
Shouldn't have been president for the first half of his term.
Yeah, you can make that argument. But he did beat Donald Trump. And if you believe that and
he obviously also had prostate cancer. And
yes.
Look, and as you and I both talked about this morning, look, here's the thing. In a democracy, there are certain things that the voters need to know about before they cast their votes, right? And I would say among those things, I don't know if it really necessarily matters, whether Joe Biden agrees with my assessment that the Rolling Stones stopped being really great after 1978 or not. That's not important. But what is important is that, among other things, is that the president be physically and mentally, sound and well. And, how do we define that? Well, we can discuss that. But, basically there should be some transparency here. If the Democrats had put this guy up and said in the Democratic primary against Bernie Sanders and said, please vote against Bernie Sanders for this guy who has, ball cancer and whose brain is rotten. But the good thing is he won't get socialized health care. And the Democratic voters did that. That's democracy. If they went into the general election and said, please vote for this addled dude who basically doesn't remember the year that his son died, okay. And the voters said, okay, we're voting for him. That's democracy. It's democracy by stupid people, but it's democracy. This is not democracy. If you lie to the public and you say, did we forget to mention that actually he's an employee of China? Did we forget to mention that he's got an IQ of 60? Did we forget to mention that, that he's got cancer all over his entire body? That's bait and switch. That's not, as Scott says, that's a coup. That's a coup d'etat. That is not a democracy. It literally changes the political system that we live under.
Well,
if you
we
start
should have a
doing that.
lemon law, like with cars. When you buy cars, we should have a
Well,
lemon
we do.
law.
We
for
do have a
president.
lemon law. It's called the 25th Amendment. Okay. And like that's the lemon law. And the vice president is supposed to trigger that and say, oh man, Joe, he's not fit. He's shot. It's like, so, and then,
like
and
Scott
she
pointed
didn't.
out, NPR is still carrying water for him.
Yeah.
120 days post office. And when you have world-renowned doctors like Zeke Emanuel pointing out that there's a 99% chance that, they knew this before.
Yeah.
That
Well,
My father-in-law had this shit, and he had it for 12 years. Okay, before he died.
Let me jump in and say, Carl, bullshit on Jake Tapper, because on the interview today with NPR to shill for his book, Tapper says, during the debate, the first answer, I was texting with the control booth and saying, "Oh my God!" So this son of a bitch knew at the very least knew during that debate. And then, if you remember, as Ted pointed out during our call this morning, Tapper was the first one to say, well, he suffers from a stutter.
Yeah.
And I had a friend, a former editorial cartoonist, say the same bullshit. And I'm just going, I know what a stutter is. I know what it sounds like.
And that ain't one.
That isn't it. This is a guy who didn't know. I mean, they actually
the stutter. How many times do we have to hear the stutter thing? Thousands.
That stuttering doesn't make you think a dead congresswoman is still in the room.
It also doesn't mean that we've overcome Medicare, which is what was a part of his answer in that debate.
It also doesn't mean that you forget what year was your last year in office as vice president.
As vice president, yeah.
So I'm furious that they
when
water.
elections take place, during leap years.
Well, and they continue to do this. They continue to carry water. You continue to have people say, "This was, the stutter. He was way sharper in private." Well, it's the same BS that Republicans were spewing about W, if you remember, back in the early 2000s, saying, behind closed doors, he's actually pretty smart.
He's a rabid intellectual.
I'm going, that can't be true, because you know what happens if you're smart.
Behind closed doors.
You know what happens when you're smart? You're smart all the time. That's what happens when you're smart.
And also, it's kind of like, again, not only is that not true, it can't be true, but also, he's a politician. Speaking in public is kind of part of the job.
It's the job description.
Imagine if you're just like, oh, I suffer from agoraphobia. I can't speak if I go outside. Well, I'll be like, you can't be president then, right?
Well, so now the next step, the next argument, the next layer of the argument is, let us move forward. Why are we he's not president anymore. Why are we talking about this? And Ted, what did you say this morning about if it was 1946?
It was 1945. I said, those Jews, they're not coming back. They're gone. Nobody can bring them back. Let's move forward. Let's not have any talk about the camps or who was responsible for the deportations. Let it go. Let's move on. Look forward.
Let's carry on.
But the problem is that here's the thing. The people, it's not like those people who are behind all this, which is the entire administration, most of the Washington press corps, a bunch of leading Democrats and not so leading Democrats. Thousands of people are responsible for this bullshit. But it's like, they're all still in power is the problem. They still run the DNC. They still are in charge of the Democratic Party. They're still on Morning Joe as the host. They're still running MSNBC. So those people are still there, and they would do this again, and they will do it again if they get the chance. So that's the problem. That's why we need accountability.
Apparatus. That's the thing. It's an indictment on why we're talking about this on day 2 is because this is a full-on indictment on the apparatus that the American people rely on for truth and news. And it's just shocking when when I showed, I think I have another one. Yeah, I have another one from Dr. Zeke Emanuel where you can look at they show the panel's face when Dr. Zeke says some more stuff, and the panel's whole face is like, it's just very telling that they're like, shut him up, turn off his mic, kick him out. They're just gritting their teeth. Here, let me show this for just a second here. So you guys can see, this is exactly what the apparatus looks like when they're in meltdown mode and they're trying to figure out how to skirt around Dr. Zeke and make themselves, save face for themselves and for the apparatus.
Recommendation to discuss it. I don't know what President Biden and his doctor discussed, but I think you are hinting at the other element, which is that President Obama had this test, President Bush had this test. It is a little surprising that the doctor didn't take it, and if he didn't report it,
who is that in front of the White House?
That is another case of doctors not being straightforward with us. We've had several of them with President Trump, especially around his COVID diagnosis. And if that is true, that would be very troubling.
Oh my God, the look, you're right, Manila, the look on their faces. Who's that woman in front of the
face? That's Caddy K, I think is her name. Caddy K.
Oh my God, that sounds like
she's a British woman. But Mika Brzezinski's face she's cringing as Dr. Zeke is talking. She's visibly cringing.
Well, if you cover the White House, you saw President Biden up close. You have zero excuse. Ted and I saw what the mainstream media and others deigned to show, and we made the analysis. Final thought, for me at least, in my therapy session here with Manila, where's my apology?
Yeah.
Where are these people now going to come forward and say, hey, listen, Scott Stannis, Ted Rall, some other commentators were right. You know what? They saw something that we decided we didn't want to see, but they were correct. And where's my apology? Where's my goddamn apology? And
it's a good fucking question. Is what it is. I mean, look, and more to the point. Look, I mean, even if we want to say, we're Americans, so we don't apologize to each other when we fuck up, fine. But what I want to really make sure is that the same assholes who brought us this misbegotten administration for the last 4 years and arguably had a big role in bringing us the new fascist one that we're now currently laboring under, that those people shouldn't be in a position to, run the next Democratic primaries and to put their thumbs on the scale of the midterm elections or to decide which progressives get to run for office and which don't. These people, Morning Joe and Mika Brzezinski, who were part of this conspiracy, and I'm just talking about them just because they're here and we're looking at them.
Face right
but
there.
They should not be trusted sources. You don't have to find, the Scott, Ted, and Manila show to replace it, but you need to get rid of them because they're discredited. As they've been explaining what is a journalist's number one job: to seek the truth and to report it to the people, not to cover up the truth when you discover it and spin it in for a political party. That's what they did. They don't deserve their jobs. It's like if a stockbroker
here's us schmucks.
If a stockbroker is always giving you advice that makes you poor, you fire them. Okay, and if a journalist is constantly lying to you, you fire them.
I'm just looking at this still from Joe Scarborough. If you could inhale your own face, that would happen right there. It's just that's incredible.
And they still think they can sort of spin this. I mean, at this point, you've got to come out of your foxhole and be like,
spun it into a whole fucking book, and he's going to make millions off of it. He just spun it.
And he's not as bad as most because at least after the fact, he put out a book. The others aren't. The others aren't saying boo. They're shutting the fuck up. There's no Joe Scarborough book admitting, fessing up,
But you will start seeing them. At the very least, you're going to see confession.
There's no mea culpa. There's no mea culpa.
There's no apology.
We talked about this, Scott, this morning. We need a John Dean moment if we really want to know what happened, right? John Dean was, was the White House counsel under Nixon, and he came forward and basically, spilled the beans on what happened internally, and spent years writing books about the inner workings of the Nixon White House and giving speeches about it. It would be nice to say, there were only 2 cabinet members, right? Lloyd Austin and Tony Blinken, who got to see the president of the United States for 2 years. I mean, Pete Buttigieg didn't lay eyes on him. I mean, it's like all these other members of the administration didn't get to see the president. Okay, so all these people, they all knew what was up. Karine Jean-Pierre, she didn't get to see the president. She was talking about, she painted him as like the human tornado. We're all having a hard time keeping up with him. He's like, he's so engaging. Kamala Harris said the same. She also didn't spend any time with him. She never sat at his knee and shadowed him to see what it would be like to be president. No wonder she wasn't ready. She had no ability to be ready, right? I mean, I don't even know. Maybe she's not as bad as we all think. She just never got the training, right? No on-the-job training.
And one of the last thoughts is, this if anything warrants hearings, it's this. What did the president know, and when didn't he know it? Would be the next line of questioning.
That's the name. That's the title. That's the title of my. That's the title of my next column.
There was a coup d'etat. This was a coup d'etat. There's no question in my mind. This was unelected officials cloistering a disabled president and running the country. This is as bad as Mrs. Wilson, when Woodrow Wilson had his second stroke, which really debilitated him. And she was signing documents with, for him.
It's insane. And to this day, we don't literally know. We don't know who decided inside the White House, for example, to support Ukraine or to support Israel or any of these other big
Everything
decisions.
was auto-signed. Let's not forget, this came out, right? Like right after the elections, and the election was confirmed by Congress. It came out. Remember, Donald Trump made a big thing about it, was that Joe Biden was constantly using auto-sign. So it's very likely that a machine was signing Joe Biden's name to every freaking executive order, every mandate, everything you could think of, support, paychecks to Zelensky, whatever, all auto-sign.
Well, you remember those signing ceremonies where it was like, which one do I do? What do I sign? Like he didn't know what he was signing.
Yeah, no, and that comes to our point. We saw what we saw and we heard what we heard, and you knew this guy was addled. You knew it. I mean, and to hear people who I respected say otherwise was repulsive. And so now the Democratic Party, the big picture going forward, and then I'll shut the hell up. I'll send Manila my $80 for the session. Is that going forward, what the Democratic Party is like, what? Well, are you guys going to trust us now? Fuck no. We do not trust you. You lied to us. You put an addled, cancer-ridden candidate in front of us knowing that he was unable to and was unlikely to finish a term. He was unable to execute the office of President of the United States. You knew it. But here's the thing. We don't know their names yet. I want to know who this inner circle is. They've used that phrase 1,000 times. I don't know the names. And if Ted doesn't know them, if I don't know them, if Manila doesn't know these names, then it's the cover-up continues. The press, the mainstream media is culpable, and we have to go forward. I don't trust this Congress, frankly, to have a grown-up, reasonable hearings on this issue. I wish I could, but I don't.
Well, that's all there is. I mean, if we're lucky, we'll get the House Oversight Committee under James Comer or a special. Really, this calls for a 9/11 commission or Warren commission, blue ribbon panel of experts.
Bring Robert Hur back.
Yeah. Well, Robert Hur is one of the long list of people who are owed apologies. I mean, he comported himself with great deference on those tapes that were released over the weekend to the president. He was very polite. He was not a right-wing hack the way that he was portrayed by the Biden White House. He was savage. He was kind and considerate. I mean, he's definitely. And you know who else is owed an apology is Dean Phillips.
Yes.
I mean, Dean Phillips He's still being unpersoned. The Washington Post covered this and said, well, he didn't. It's like he didn't exist. Nobody ran against Joe Biden because they were all afraid. No, someone ran against Joe Biden and was drummed out of the House of Representatives as a result, right? The Democratic Party turned him
Nancy
the
Pelosi
DNC
knew.
turned him into a pariah. And what was Dean Phillips? I didn't vote for Dean Phillips. Dean Phillips' shtick was, I agree with Joe Biden. I think he's been a great president. I agree with 100% of his policies, and I would continue them. I think he's just too old to take us to the next term. And that was too much for the DNC. They were like, fuck that guy.
I'm young Joe Biden.
Get rid of his committee assignments. Fire him. Drum him out of the House of Representatives.
He's
owed an apology.
You guys, I bet Nancy Pelosi knew a lot more or knows a lot more than she's leading on.
She talked to him during the 2020 election. She knew.
She knew. They all knew.
She knows about his balls. She knows about his marbles. She knows about all of them. The balls and marbles.
She does. Yeah, and by the way, like, it's so funny. Like, there's some people like, I can't believe you don't believe us about the cancer. It's like, oh, I don't know. It's like, I'd say at this point, if the cancer thing is true, that's just new news to you. Like, the burden of proof is on you now after the shit that you just pulled for the last 5 years. And by the way, Bernie Sanders is owed an apology too. Like,
you know who gets this cancer is most American men who have really shitty health insurance, not someone who goes to Walter Reed
and
once
people who
a
don't
year.
have sex.
What's that?
And people who don't have sex. If you're draining the dragon, you're not likely to get prostate cancer.
Yes, you are. Of course, that has nothing to do with it, Ted.
It has everything to do with it, according to studies.
No, I don't know. It's helpful, but that is not true.
Although I don't think they said that he was having urinary problems and other, so I'm willing to bet that he and Jill aren't really, hooking up anymore.
Yeah.
Probably not. I don't know.
I hope so. But that'd be nice for her.
I doubt it.
To your point about the whole healthcare thing, like I said yesterday, for me to have found out that at stage 0, regular me, to find out about breast cancer at stage 0 in situ, meaning it hadn't spread. If Jane Schmo Manila can with my regular person health insurance can find out at stage 0 about breast cancer, how is it that the commander in chief escaped having his balls?
Don't forget, he had the annual physical at Walter Reed, right? Plus, every time he fell, they took him to the doctor.
Yeah,
every time he had COVID twice, right? He went to the doctor then. Every time he got sick, which was a lot, he had a lot of health care. He fucked. Remember his foot like basically shattered.
He had.
When he was playing with the bitey dog.
The doctor that would come to the White House with old school, carrying his Dr. Go bag and go give him shots, and people were saying it was potentially that new medication to kind of clear the plaque out of his brain. That's what people were speculating. But he had an in-house White House doctor that would come to the White House. He signed in like more than 120 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
yeah, I'm sorry.
Chance.
Right. There is zero. And he had, I mean,
it's a blood test anyway, right? I mean,
right. I just went on Medicare.
They just take it. Right?
I just went on Medicare. And just to inform everybody that the standard Medicare physical is your doctor going in and going, and walking back out. That's really it. So this guy had not just the executive, what they call the executive, isn't that a quaint phrase now? The executive, physical. He had the penultimate executive physical. Don't tell me they didn't find this. That's horse crap. His PSA numbers would have been through the roof. The finger probe, they would have found the tumor. This is just, all of it. And now the Democratic Party coming forward and saying, well, you guys got to trust us for the midterms, right? Right? And it's like, hell, not just no, but
I mean, I know Democrats are going to say, well, Trump is a liar too.
Well, he is.
That's true, but that's some weak tea. And not to mention, the Republican brand wasn't exactly ever we're the party of truth. The Democratic brand for the last 10 years has been we're the party of truth when Trump lies. So you're fucking up your brand. It's like, it's rough. I mean, and they did all fucking know. They all knew, right? Like they knew bigly. I mean, Obama knew. They all knew. And I mean, and then also, finally, in the end, who blew the whistle? It was George Clooney. We needed an actor he was shocked. I mean, I love the fact that like Joe Biden had known and been friends with Clooney for 30 years. He didn't recognize him. And I mean, and I'm also like, so I know who if George Clooney walked into a room, I'd be like, oh, that's George Clooney because I'm an American. I know George Clooney when I see him. It's like.
That's how far gone he is. Anyway,
Anyway,
we should probably let Scott go. I know he's been trying to wrap. He's been giving us the sign for a while. I heard you, Scott. I know.
No. I mean,
my senility doesn't let me read that. All right, Scott. Thank you so much for joining. Scott
Thanks for having me,
Stantis
guys.
is a contributor to Center Clip, winner of the Sigma Delta Chi Journalism Awards, editorial cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune, and the co-host of the DMZ America podcast with me, Ted Rall. Take it away.
Thank you, Scott. All right. So that does it for us. We're wrapping it up.
Oh, we have an ad.
We do.
Yeah, so producer Robbie, please put it up into the chat, and I will read it.
Word from our sponsor.
Before we be gone.
The word from our sponsor today is it's Rumble Premium. It'd be Rumble Premium.
This sponsorship is from Rumble, one that's incredibly important to the survival of the company. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they felt a pressure from the Biden-Harris administration. Rumble did not. They held the line. They're attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. They're attacked in corporate media. They're attacked by governments like France. They're attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to. Robbie, I need the rest of the ad. Who refuse to. Please hold. An operator will be standing by. This call is being recorded for quality maintenance purposes. Here we go. Watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight and you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO. When you purchase an annual subscription, go to rumble.com/premium. Use promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now's the time to use Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we're just happy if you watch us here on Rumble.
Yeah, and I would add, if you're watching us right now, if you click the red Rumble Premium button right now below our talking heads here, that a portion of that will actually come straight to the TMI Show. So that's an extra way you can help out this program specifically, and then enjoy the other Rumble Premium content. So that will do it for the show today. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. At the very least, we ask that you like and share. So press that thumbs up, smash it, as our buddy Jabal Thomas would say, smash the thumbs up button wherever you're consuming this content. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Adios, amigos. Have a great, it's only Tuesday.
Tuesday.
No, that doesn't work. It's only Tuesday? That's the vibe. It's only Tuesday? God. Bye, everybody.
Bye.